The stench of proxima moonshine and scorched metal hung heavy in the small shelter Evan Cain called home. A rusted shack welded from old ship panels and thermal plating, it stood crooked at the edge of the New Haven settlement, surrounded by the crimson dust and silence of Proxima IV. Inside, shadows flickered across the uneven walls, thrown by a single trembling light source that buzzed with fading energy. Evan sat hunched over a makeshift table, fingers wrapped around a dented metal cup filled with something that burned like jet fuel. He hadn't asked what it was. He didn't care. Across from him, resting in the corner like a forgotten relic, stood the last reminder of who he used to be. His battle armor, scarred and stained, gleamed dully in the half-light. Each dent told a story he no longer wanted to remember. Near it, his pulse pistol lay on the table within arm's reach, always close, never forgotten. His reflection stared back at him from the polished surface of the cup. A face hardened by years of war and silence, eyes like fractured ice, blonde hair grown just long enough to fall into his face. He looked nothing like the elite soldier he once was. Now he was just a man hiding from ghosts in a place too far from anything that mattered. Evan raised the cup and emptied it in one swig, the burn in his throat barely registered. Then came the pounding at the door. 3 sharp knocks. Hesitation. Then 2 more, faster, more desperate. Before he could rise, the door burst open with a metallic shriek. A gust of cold air rushed in, carrying with it the smell of dust, fear, and something else. Something familiar. In the doorway stood a small figure, silhouetted against the violet sky of Proxima's endless dusk. A child. No, not human. A Proximan girl. She stumbled forward, breathing hard, her eyes wide with urgency and fear. Her pale blue skin glowed faintly in the dark, a soft shimmer that marked her as native. Snow-white hair spilled around her shoulders in tangled waves, and her hands clutched the hilt of a sword nearly as tall as she was. The weapon was ceremonial, ornate, etched with glowing symbols along its edge, and clearly far too heavy for her to carry. Yet she held it, trembling but determined. "Please," she gasped, her voice high and broken. "Please, mighty human. My sister was taken. Let's rescue her together." Evan blinked, caught between disbelief and instinct. He stood slowly, hand drifting toward the pistol. "What are you talking about, kid? Who are you?" "My name is Luara," she said, tears welling in her glowing eyes. "The Void Walkers. They came to our home near the ridge. They took my sister, Allura. The others, they're too scared. But they said you're the strongest. You're the mighty human warrior." Evan's throat tightened. That word, sister. He looked at the girl again, really looked. She was just a child, exhausted, desperate. And she was alone. "No," he said quickly, voice cold. "No, not again. I'm done with that kind of fight. I'm not who they think I am." Luara stepped forward, dragging the sword behind her. "You are," she insisted. "You just forgot." He turned away from her, facing the armor in the corner. The past clawed at him. The mission at New Berlin. The screams in the comms. The small voice of a girl calling for help before everything went dark. His hands clenched. "You said Void Walkers?" he asked, barely above a whisper. Luara nodded. "They're taking people. My parents are gone. My sister is all I have left." He didn't speak. Then he crossed the room, grabbed the sword from her weak hands, and felt its hum the moment it touched his skin. Something inside the blade responded. Or maybe something inside him. "I go alone," he said. "You stay here. Lock the door." "But—" He was already pulling on the armor, the plates locking into place with mechanical precision, old muscle memory returning like a bitter taste. "I'll bring her back," he said. The guards fell. The priest did not run. He simply looked at Evan as if seeing something terrible and holy. You bear the blade of the ancestors. Then the prophecy may be true. I don't care about prophecy, Evan growled, shattering the lock on the cage. I'm here for the girl. Allura stirred, eyes fluttering open. For a moment she looked dazed. Then her eyes met Evan's, and in that instant, the sword blazed brighter than ever. She saw him, not just with her eyes, but with something deeper. You're late, she whispered. Evan blinked. You know me? I dreamed you. Then her head fell back. Behind him, Luara screamed. Void walkers were flooding the ravine, dozens of them. Evan hoisted Allura into his arms, the sword strapped tight to his back, his pulse rifle in one hand. Luara! Run! They fled into the tunnels beyond the ruins, pursued by monsters from the dark. But in Evan's arms was the light. The crimson dust clung to Evan's boots like guilt as he stalked across the wastelands beyond New Haven. The perpetual dusk of Proxima IV bled across the sky in streaks of purple and orange, casting long shadows that danced like ghosts behind him. He kept one hand on the hilt of the ceremonial sword now strapped across his back, the blade of ancestors, the Proximan girl had called it. Its strange warmth pulsed against his spine, as if reacting to something on the horizon. He didn't trust it. He didn't trust much of anything anymore. The terrain sloped downward into a dry ravine carved long ago by something. Water, maybe, or worse. Bone-colored spires jutted from the ground like the ribs of a buried titan, and the air carried a low hum, faint but constant. There was something wrong with this place, something alive beneath the rock. He paused, crouching low and scanning the ground. Tracks. 3 sets, heavy and staggered, heading east, away from the settlement. Too large to be local animals. Boots, not hooves. Void walkers. One of them dragging something, or someone. He was on the right trail. A soft crunch behind him made him spin, pulse pistol raised, safety off. Luara froze mid-step. Evan lowered the weapon with a snarl. I told you to stay back! I did, she said, voice small but steady. For 5 minutes. He swore under his breath and turned away. Go back. No. He wheeled on her. This isn't a game, Luara. This is war. You don't know what you're walking into. She's my sister, Luara said. Her words weren't loud, but they hit him harder than a bullet. And I've already lost everything else. Evan stared at her, the defiance in her glowing blue eyes. Fragile, trembling, but unbroken. Just like Allura, he imagined. He sighed and nodded once, relenting. Fine. But you stay behind me. Always. A flicker of triumph danced across her face. She didn't speak. She just fell in line. They moved through the ravine in silence for another kilometer. The air grew colder, the dust thinner. The rocks around them changed, smooth, metallic, with veins of glowing green light running beneath their surfaces. Proxima was changing. Then came the scent, burned ozone, like the air after a lightning strike. Evan raised a fist, halting Luara. He knelt behind a jagged outcrop and peered ahead. Movement. In the clearing below, just before the ruins began, a group of void walkers had made camp. Their ship was small, wedge-shaped, half buried in the dirt like a rusted claw. Around it, fires burned low in hollowed-out bones, and shadows danced across the rough stone. 6 figures milled about, tall, gray-skinned, armored in matte black plating that shimmered with kinetic shielding. Their weapons were sleek and brutal, but Evan wasn't looking at the warriors. He was looking at the cage in the center of the camp. Inside it, curled and unconscious, was Allura. Even slumped over, she radiated light. Her silver-white hair spilled around her like a crown, her skin glowing softly in the gloom. Her breathing was shallow but steady, and chained to the base of the cage was another figure, smaller, older, cloaked in tattered robes, a Proximan priest. Evan's heart sank. This wasn't a raid. This was a ritual. Luara's breath caught as she saw her sister, her hands curled into fists. "She's alive." "Yes," Evan whispered, "but not for long." A shriek shattered the quiet, a warning call. One of the Void Walkers had spotted them. Evan grabbed Luara and pulled her down, then slid the pulse rifle off his back. "Stay here. Don't move." "I can help." "Luara, please." She stopped, then nodded, silent, terrified. Evan moved like liquid shadow, descending the rocks with practiced precision. Two Void Walkers moved to intercept him, their weapons already raised. Evan didn't fire. He charged. The ceremonial sword came alive in his hand, its glowing edge slicing through the air. It hummed with ancient energy, guiding his strikes. The first Void Walker fell before it even understood what it faced. Armor cleaved like paper. The second fired, once, twice. Both bolts bounced off Evan's armor as he rolled forward, slashing upward. The blade cut through energy shielding like it wasn't there. Screams erupted. The camp exploded into chaos. Void Walkers scrambled. Alarms blared. But Evan moved with terrifying grace, each step perfectly placed. He wasn't just fighting. He was remembering. Every kill a ghost laid to rest. Then he reached the cage. Two more Void Walkers blocked his path. These wore ceremonial armor etched in bone, guarding the priest. The priest raised one hand. "Stop, human. The ritual is sacred. The bond must be fulfilled." Evan stared at him. "You've got about 3 seconds to get out of my way." The priest's face twisted in something close to pity. "It's already begun. She is marked. Once joined, she cannot be unbound." The Void Walkers surged forward. Evan stepped between them and the sisters, drawing the sword. And the heart responded. Light exploded from the blade, forming a shield around them. Symbols in the air shimmered and rotated. Evan could feel the ship feeding him knowledge, battle formations, defense systems, energy control. It was talking to him, teaching him, accepting him. Luara ran to Allura's side. "What do we do?" Allura looked at Evan. "We fight," she said. "Together." The chamber lit with war. Evan surged forward, the blade singing through the air. The first wave of Void Walkers never stood a chance. He moved like a storm of light and steel, every strike precise, every movement guided by something greater than instinct. Behind him, Allura raised her hands, channeling energy from the floor into brilliant arcs of force. Luara found a console glowing with her touch, and began to activate systems she didn't understand but somehow knew. The heart of Proxima was no longer sleeping. It had chosen its guardians. And as the walls echoed with battle cries and energy blasts, Evan realized the truth. The ancient tunnels swallowed them whole. The moment Evan crossed the threshold of the stone archway carved into the cliffside, the temperature dropped by 10 degrees. The walls pulsed faintly with veins of bioluminescent script, symbols that shimmered and shifted as if alive. Behind him, Luara clung to his side, her small chest rising and falling with panicked breaths. In his arms, Allura remained unconscious, her body limp but glowing faintly with each step they took deeper into the earth. Behind them, the cries of Void Walkers echoed in the distance, guttural shouts and clashing metal. The tunnel entrance had collapsed under Evan's timed detonator, sealing them in, for now. But it wouldn't hold. And Evan knew it. They had minutes, maybe less. He adjusted his grip on Allura, slinging her weight more evenly across his armored shoulders, and glanced at Luara. "Can you keep up?" She nodded quickly, breathless. "I know these tunnels. My mother showed me once. They run through the bones of the old world." "Then take the lead. Find us somewhere safe." Luara didn't hesitate. She darted ahead, her glowing skin reflecting off the walls like starlight. Evan followed, every muscle coiled, every nerve alert. He felt the blade on his back responding, resonating. It pulsed with each step forward, like a heartbeat not his own. These weren't just tunnels. This was something older, something waiting. They twisted and turned through the maze of corridors, past collapsed bridges and half-buried doorways etched with ancient glyphs. At one junction, Luara paused, uncertain. "It splits here. Left leads toward the underground river. Right leads to the Chamber of Echoes." "Which one's deeper?" Evan asked. "Right," she whispered. But what?" She swallowed. "My people say the chamber was sealed by the first priestesses, because something inside spoke in dreams." Evan looked at the unconscious girl in his arms. Allura murmured, her lips moving soundlessly. A soft pulse of light shimmered across her skin. "I think she's already hearing it." He nodded toward the right tunnel. "We go deeper." They moved in silence, the air growing heavier with every step. The tunnel narrowed until even Evan had to duck beneath low arches and brush aside vines growing from the very walls. The light from the sword illuminated strange images, figures with glowing eyes, holding up the same blade now strapped to his back. Beside them stood beings of light and shadow, united beneath a sky of 3 stars. A memory buried in stone. Then suddenly the tunnel opened into a vast subterranean cavern. It was impossible in scale, hundreds of meters across, with a vaulted ceiling that vanished into darkness. At its center stood a platform carved from silverstone, suspended over a pit of glowing blue light. Around it, ancient machines blinked slowly to life, as if sensing their arrival. And behind it all, built into the very wall of the mountain, was the outline of a vessel. Not just a ship, a cradle. Luara gasped. "The heart of Proxima!" Evan's pulse quickened. "What?" "My mother spoke of it. Said it was the first ship that brought our ancestors. Said it sleeps until the Guardian and the Bloodline awaken it together." A low hum began to vibrate through the chamber, matching the beat of Evan's heart. The sword on his back grew hot, no longer just a weapon, but a key. In his arms, Allura stirred. Her eyes opened. They were no longer the soft turquoise from before. Now they glowed with threads of gold. She looked at him and whispered one word: "Chosen." Evan lowered her gently onto the platform. The moment her skin touched the silverstone, the entire cavern reacted. The machines around them surged to life. The pit of light beneath them flared with energy. And the ship behind them began to awaken. Pillars of light shot upward. The sound of ancient engines thrummed like drums from another age. Evan stepped back, shielding Luara with one arm, but she stepped forward instead. "She's doing it," she whispered. "She's waking the heart." Allura rose to her feet slowly, still weak, but radiant. Her hair floated as if caught in unseen currents. She looked at Evan, and something passed between them. Recognition, not of who they were, but of what they would become. Then a roar split the chamber. The wall behind them exploded inward, showering the chamber in rubble. Evan spun just in time to see black-armored figures pour through a new breach, dozens of them, void walkers, armed and hungry. Krell stood at their front, eyes glowing with fury. "You were warned," he snarled, voice amplified by a neural amp in his helmet. "The bloodline is mine. And you, human, are nothing but a temporary distraction. Allura stepped forward, weak but proud.
I choose him.
The air reeked of ionized blood and scorched stone. Echoes of battle still bounced off the walls of the ancient chamber as Evan stood at the center of the wreckage, his chest rising and falling in sharp, labored breaths. The ceremonial sword pulsed dimly in his grip, the once blinding glow fading now that the immediate threat had passed. Around him, the broken bodies of void walkers lay scattered, some frozen by energy pulses, others carved down by the sword's blazing edge. The stone beneath their feet was cracked, blackened from blasts, but the platform still stood, intact, humming with life beneath Allura's bare feet. The heart of Proxima was no longer asleep. It was stirring, hungry, ancient, watching, and Evan could feel it watching through him. Luara emerged from the shadows, dragging a long metal rod she had jammed into a console. Her small face was smudged with dust, but her eyes gleamed with fierce determination.
They stopped coming, she said quietly. I think, for now, they're all gone.
For now, Evan muttered, scanning the chamber. They'll regroup. Krell's not the kind of bastard to let go. He turned toward Allura, who stood near the center of the awakening ship, the glow of the floor rising to meet her steps. She didn't look like a prisoner anymore. She looked like a queen.
I feel it, Evan, she whispered, not turning around. The ship. It's alive. And it remembers me.
Is it speaking to you? He asked. She nodded slowly.
Not with words. With memory. Emotion. It's like I'm dreaming through someone else's eyes. 1,000 years ago.
Evan holstered his pulse pistol and stepped closer. Can it protect us?
If we complete the joining, she said, looking back at him now, her turquoise eyes burning brighter than he'd ever seen.
If we finish the ritual. Evan frowned. We already stopped Krell's version of that ritual. That was a perversion, she said. This is something else. This is what the prophecy meant. What the heart has waited for. You and I, Evan. Together. Her voice trembled on the last word, but it wasn't fear. It was certainty. He looked around again. The murals on the walls had changed since their arrival. Now they glowed with scenes from an ancient war. Tall figures, proximans, stood beside armored warriors with human silhouettes, wielding the sword of ancestors. The two races, united, brought forth light against an approaching darkness, one that wasn't Void Walker. It was something worse, a shadow with no shape, a hunger that swallowed suns. This prophecy, Evan said slowly, it's not just about this world, is it?
No, Allura whispered. It never was.
Before they could speak again, the ship shuddered, deep, as if its heart had skipped a beat. Then came the sound, grinding stone from above. Evan looked up. The chamber ceiling was moving. No, opening. A circular hatch, rusted and covered in vines, twisted apart overhead, revealing the stormy twilight sky of Proxima 4. And then they heard it. A whine, sharp and mechanical, growing louder. Something was descending. A scout vessel, sleek, dark. Definitely not Void Walker. Allura's eyes narrowed. That's not one of ours. Evan's pulse quickened. That's a human ship. He stepped onto the platform as a holographic projection appeared in midair, triggered by the heart. The image resolved into a sleek, dark-armored soldier, a man with sharp eyes and a scar across his jaw. Evan's stomach dropped. Captain Vance, he muttered. You know him? Allura asked. He was my squad leader, back before New Berlin, before everything burned. The hologram began to speak. Evan Cain. If you're receiving this message, we've detected a massive energy spike from your location, tied to classified pre-fall technology. This is an immediate retrieval mission. Prepare for extraction. The hologram flickered and disappeared. Allura looked at him. They're coming for you. No, Evan said, his voice cold. They're coming for the heart. More grinding above them. The scout ship was lowering through the ceiling, slow and deliberate, its weapons clearly hot. It hovered above the open space, casting a massive shadow over the platform. Options? Allura asked, already reaching for the controls. Talk first. Fight if they force it, Evan replied. They don't know what they're walking into. The ship touched down. The ramp hissed open. Out stepped Captain Vance, flanked by 4 soldiers in sleek black armor. They moved with military precision, but their weapons weren't raised. Yet. Vance removed his helmet. His face was harder than Evan remembered. Paler. More tired. But his eyes still burned with that cold leadership that once made him a legend. Evan Cain, he said, his voice echoing in the cavern. You've been dead for 3 years. I got better, Evan replied, stepping forward. Vance didn't smile. What is this place? He asked slowly. The beginning, Evan said. Or maybe the end. Depends what you do next. You've activated something old, something dangerous. The Alliance is going to want control of this. She's not a thing, Evan said. This ship, this world, these people, they're not assets. They're mine to protect. Vance's eyes darkened. Then you've gone rogue. No, Evan said, gripping the sword. I've gone home! A low growl from one of the soldiers behind Vance, but the captain held up a hand. I'm giving you one chance, Vance said. Stand down. Let us secure the vessel. Allura stepped up beside Evan. Her glow intensified, and the floor beneath her lit up in response. This ship responds only to the bonded. You can't access it, and you're not welcome. Vance's jaw tightened. You're making a mistake. No, Evan said. You are. If you push this, there won't be a fight. There'll be a war. A tense silence filled the chamber. Then Vance said, So be it. His soldiers raised their weapons, but they were too late. The heart of Proxima surged. A shockwave of blue energy erupted from the platform, sending the soldiers flying back like leaves in a hurricane. The ship screamed in protest, its systems flaring to full power. Evan and Allura stood at the center of it all, hand in hand, glowing with shared energy. Above them, the ceiling shattered, exploding outward in a blinding column of light. The storm raged above Proxima 4, not a storm of wind or rain, but of fire and light, of awakened systems and ancient vengeance. The shattered ceiling of the heart's chamber had torn open the sky like a wound, exposing the hidden force buried beneath the planet's crust for millennia. Bolts of blue energy surged upward from the heart, rippling across the clouds in pulses that mimicked a heartbeat, fast, furious, and alive. And now the heart of Proxima was no longer waiting. It was rising. The ground trembled with each ignition pulse. Deep below, engines the size of cities roared back to life. Stone peeled from metal. Vines burned away as the heart shed its shell like a serpent molting its skin. Within its core, the ancient ship, vessel, fortress, and sentient seed began to ascend. From the viewing deck high inside the newly awakened command chamber, Evan Cain stood beside Allura and Luara, staring out at the chaos unfolding below. Alliance dropships now filled the horizon. A fleet, not a rescue mission. An invasion. They came fast, Evan muttered, eyes scanning the incoming vessels. They must have been monitoring this system for years, just waiting for the signal.
They want the ship, Allura said quietly.
No, Evan replied, voice low and sharp. They want you, and what we've become. The heart's internal systems flickered to life around them. Holograms of distant continents blinked into view. Displays showed power reserves, shield statuses, weapons locked and primed. The heart was ready for war. But Evan wasn't. He hadn't come here to start another battle. He'd come here to disappear, to rest, to die, maybe, if it meant peace. But fate had different plans. Allura, he said, gripping the edge of the console. If this turns into a full-blown assault, I need to know something. She turned to him, eyes calm but searching. Ask. What happens if we fail to protect the heart? Allura didn't answer immediately. Instead, she walked toward the central node of the chamber, her fingers brushing over the glowing surface. The symbols reacted to her presence, spinning into a three-dimensional projection, a galaxy map. At its center, Proxima 4. Around it, thousands of red nodes pulsing with faint light. Those aren't stars, Evan said, leaning closer. They're vessels. Seed ships, Allura said. Siblings of the heart, buried across the stars. Some asleep, some taken. What are they waiting for? He asked. Allura turned, and her voice dropped to a whisper. They're waiting for us. Evan swallowed hard. Below, the Alliance fleet began deploying troops. Commander Vance just transmitted, Luara said, her small fingers dancing over the console like she'd been born for it. He's demanding surrender. He says they'll take the heart by force if necessary. Evan's knuckles whitened. Tell him no, she grinned. Already did. Allura stepped beside Evan. They don't understand what they're playing with. If the heart detects a systemic threat, it could trigger planetary lockdown. Meaning? Meaning, it becomes a weapon. One that doesn't stop until everything it deems hostile is erased. Evan stared at her. That include humans? It includes everyone. They stood in silence as the weight of that truth settled. Then came the chime. The heart had opened a new link, an encrypted Alliance frequency. Someone was trying to speak to Evan privately. He hesitated, then accepted. The voice that came through froze his blood. Cain, said the voice. It's me, Rika. He nearly dropped the receiver. Rika Soline. The only person he'd ever let close after New Berlin. The only one he'd trusted with the truth. She died. Or so he thought. Her ship had been vaporized during the retreat. He'd watched it happen. You're dead, he said, voice shaking. Not quite, Rika replied, her voice harder than he remembered. I was saved, rebuilt, by the same people who just deployed half a fleet to your doorstep, and they sent me to bring you in. Evan's eyes darted to Allura, whose expression had grown tight. I won't let you take her, he said. I figured you'd say that, Rika replied. Which is why I'm offering you a deal. Walk out of the heart alone, leave the Proximans behind, and we'll let the rest of them go. And if I don't? The silence was long, cold. Then the heart burns, and everything with it. Evan cut the line. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Allura said, She meant every word. Yeah, Evan replied. She always did. The heart pulsed again. It felt angry, aware. Evan turned to the central altar. The blade of ancestors rested in its cradle, glowing brighter now, responding to his rising adrenaline, his racing thoughts. I made a mistake once, he said. Back on Earth, I followed orders when I should have followed my gut. People died. My people. The sky tore open as the heart of Proxima rose. Lightning that wasn't lightning forked across the heavens, blue-white arcs of ancient energy crackling around the rising fortress ship. Clouds churned in unnatural spirals above the launch shaft, displaced by propulsion systems so advanced that even the laws of physics bent in reverence. And at the very center of this divine machine stood Cain, once a forgotten soldier buried in exile, now reborn as the chosen guardian of something far older than Earth, far greater than war. Beneath his feet, the deck of the heart hummed with power, reactive, intelligent, and aware. The ship was no longer waking, it was watching. He gripped the blade of ancestors tightly. It pulsed in his hand, not just with light, but with memory. Every step he took through the command corridor felt rehearsed, as if this path had already been walked long ago, and he was merely remembering how. Allura stood beside him, radiant in her proximity armor, alive, commanding, and terrifying in her grace. Luara trailed close behind, wide-eyed but unshaken, her fingers flying over the glowing consoles as if born to them. They were no longer fugitives. They were fire. Outside, the Alliance fleet had fully deployed. Frigates, gunships, orbital skimmers, sleek and silver, bristling with weapons, surrounding the rising heart like wolves encircling a titan. But even wolves hesitate when the Earth itself begins to roar. 30 enemy craft in range, Luara announced. 12 are locking weapons. They've formed an interlock siege ring. They're trying to box us in. Evan stepped to the main command altar. Can the heart fly? It can do more than fly, Allura said, placing her hand over a glowing emblem on the platform. But it won't act unless we act as one. She turned to him. Evan, it's time. The blade between them lit with an intensity that made Luara shield her eyes. Symbols etched along its alien edge began to move, shifting, rearranging into something new. The heart's systems surged to life, displays forming mid-air, maps, heat signatures, tactical readouts, all written in both ancient Proximan glyphs and human script overlays. The ship was synchronizing with them in real time. A pulse shot through the deck, and a low chime echoed across the chamber. Neural fusion protocol initiated, a voice said. Not mechanical, but smooth, ageless. The ship had spoken. Guardian and Bloodline recognized. Combat interface unlocked. Allura and Evan locked eyes. Ready? She asked. Evan slid the sword into the central slot. The entire ship trembled. Let's see what it can really do. Then chaos erupted. Outside, the Alliance made the first move. 3 gunships peeled off from the main formation, descending in a tight delta pattern. They opened fire in unison, launching coordinated plasma barrages aimed at the heart's exposed propulsion flares. Too late. The ship's exterior shimmered as blue hexagonal energy shields flared to life. The plasma detonated harmlessly against the shield wall, the blasts lighting up the sky like false stars. Allura, Evan shouted. Return fire? She smiled. With precision. From hidden apertures along the heart's hull, weapons emerged, sleek, silent, glowing with power. Evan didn't recognize them. These weren't Earth weapons. These were designed by a civilization that seeded life itself. Luara pointed. Targets locked. Evan nodded once. Release. The heart responded like a beast unleashed. Beams of energy lanced through the air, not crude laser fire or brute force railguns, but threads of pure plasma wrapped in gravitational spin. The gunships exploded mid-air, not in flames, but in folds, like paper crumpling in reverse. No debris fell, no survivors. Silence fell over the Alliance frequency. Evan stepped forward. Broadcast this to all enemy ships, he said. This is Cain. I am in command of the heart of Proxima. Stand down, or I will end this siege before it begins. A flicker of signal, then a voice. Vance. You don't understand what you've touched, Cain. This isn't just a relic, it's a trigger. You're going to bring them here. Evan froze. Who? You think the Void Walkers are dangerous? Vance's voice was steady now, grim. They were running from something. Something older. Something watching. The moment you activated that ship, the whole sector lit up like a beacon. Evan looked at Allura, then at the holographic map now displaying across the command center. There. A red marker. Faint. Distant. But moving. Fast. Allura's face paled. That's not a Void Walker ship. No, Vance confirmed. He'd heard that name once, whispered in an old Black Ops briefing. A species or a plague, no one really knew. A force that reduced entire systems to echoes. No survivors, no records. They're coming, Vance said, and now they know exactly where to find you. Luara's voice trembled. What do we do? Evan didn't hesitate. We fight here, but not alone. He turned to Allura. The other seed ships, the ones you showed me. Can we wake them? Allura's hands moved across the controls. The heart responded instantly, transmitting ancient frequencies outward across the stars. They'll hear us, she whispered. The others. The lost. The forgotten. Every world that still remembers what we were. Evan looked out the viewport, watching as more Alliance ships began to retreat from their positions, confused, uncertain. Let them be afraid. He drew the sword again. We're not just defending Proxima now, he said. We're lighting the first torch in a war that started long before we were born. The ship rumbled under his feet. The stars responded. Lightning forked across the skies of Proxima 4 as the heart of Proxima ascended fully into the heavens. It no longer resembled the buried ruin that had slumbered beneath the sands. Its outer hull now shimmered with veins of blue-white energy. Its towers retracted into aerodynamic form, and its weapons were aligned along graceful wings that curved like a bird of prey about to strike. What once had been a myth, a story whispered by elders around fires, now moved with undeniable intent, alive, aware, and terrifying in its majesty. And at its core, bound not by command but by destiny, stood Evan Cain, Allura, and Luara. They weren't running anymore. They were answering. Inside the command chamber, the atmosphere pulsed with tension. The transmission panel flared to life again. Alliance frequencies, confusion, desperation. Command, this is Lieutenant Rika Soline, came a woman's voice, sharp, strained. He has control of the vessel. I repeat, Evan Cain is bonded with the Proximan air and in full command. He's activating deep void signals. We don't know what it's calling. Static. Then another signal. Not Alliance, not human. It bled through the airwaves like a whisper from beyond time. A pattern of tones and pulses, almost musical but underneath, screaming. Luara stumbled back from her console, clutching her head. Make it stop, it's inside my thoughts! Allura caught her, holding her close. It's not speaking to your mind, it's speaking to your blood. Evan turned to the central display. The harrowed marker, that single distant red dot, had multiplied. Now there were 5, then 12, then 23. A swarm, coming fast. Allura stepped forward, her face pale but resolute. They were always meant to return. The prophecy didn't end with the Guardian and the bloodline. It began with them. Evan's grip on the blade of ancestors tightened. Then what's the heart supposed to do? Unite the fallen, Allura said. Summon the other seeds. Light the old stars again. And if they don't respond? He asked. She looked him dead in the eye. Then we die with our blade in the ground, like heroes. He laughed bitterly. That's always how my stories end. Luara suddenly gasped and pointed at the star map. Look! Evan spun. One of the ancient nodes Allura had shown him, the map of the other buried ships, had just blinked to life. Then another, and another. Dozens, then hundreds. Seed ships across the galaxy were responding. From beneath oceans, mountains, moons, and forgotten worlds, beacons awoke. Systems that hadn't spoken in thousands of years flickered to life. The stars themselves seemed to lean in closer. The others heard us, Allura said, tears in her eyes. The heart of Proxima has called them home. But it wasn't over. Above them, the sky broke open as the first harrowed ship arrived. It didn't emerge from space so much as fold reality around it, like ripping paper with sound. A shadow of shifting geometry, obsidian and wrong, hung over the world, larger than cities, silent, watching. Evan stared, pulse slowing. His military mind had no tactics for this. The harrowed ship moved. It didn't fire. It whispered. A wave of black static surged across space, aimed directly at the heart. "Brace!" he shouted. But before the wave could reach them, another ship intercepted it. A second seed ship, then a third, then 10 more. From all directions, ancient ships, each different in form, design, culture, rushed to Proxima's defense. Vessels that hadn't flown in millennia now aligned beside the heart, responding to the same pulse of prophecy and promise. Allura turned to Evan. You're not just the guardian of Proxima. You're the guardian of the old worlds. The fleet formed around them, a wall of forgotten civilizations reborn. And from within the heart, the blade of ancestors glowed so bright it was hard to look at. Evan, Allura whispered, now. He raised the blade high above his head. The heart responded. Its central spire opened, revealing a radiant core. Energy flooded into the blade, into Evan, into Allura, through them. And in that moment, their bond transcended biology. The ship was no longer powered by them. It was them. Together, they unleashed the heart's true weapon. Not a beam, not a missile, a signal, a wave of resonance that washed across the system, erasing the Harrods' static with light, overwriting their corruption with song. The enemy ship twisted, spasmed, collapsed inward, unable to survive the purity of the code. And the galaxy changed forever. The battle never truly ended, but it never needed to. With the seed ships united, a new alliance was born. The first accord, led not by empires, but by guardians. The ancient